Good morning.
Ms. Hobeck.
Good morning, I'm here.
Ms. Skanke.
Good morning.
Mr. Kaleka.
Good morning, Kurt. Good morning, board.
We have a quorum.
Okay, we're going to move on to item 8A6, 7, 8, and 9. These are 4 related cases, and we have various allegers that I will invite to come forward and share their position. These 4 related cases, we're going to run them all together, but I want to give all the allegers an opportunity to present their concerns. Mr. Fleetwood, are you online? Mark Fleetwood? Hayden? Ms. Weber? Okay.
Mr. Chair, he was on earlier, so he may have, for some reason, disconnected, but he was on previously.
Okay. Well, maybe you'll call back in. There's some prior history. The synopsis for this case is that on January the 19th, 2023, the board received a complaint alleging that respondent engineer of record for the Cedar Grove Water Company project and respondent firm failed to oversee the compaction required for the public water trench, failed to have all excess material, off the job site, which left all excess material on the high side of the roadway, so that when it rains, excess material runs into the roadway, creating a 4 to 6 inch layer of mud, which makes it difficult to access the home and takes away all services, including 911 emergency. It is alleged the respondent failed to direct the contractors to install the proper valve cover pipes in the roadway, which limits the use of the full road, failed to direct the contractor to leave the roadway as wide as it was prior to the construction and in the same condition, according to the MAG standards set forth by the permit and plans issued by ADEQ, and failed to direct the contractor to replace a privacy gate that they tore down during construction. We have, gentlemen, please introduce yourselves and share your position on these 4 cases. They are related.
Yes, sir. At this time, I would like to thank the chairman as well as all of the board members. My name is Dean Ulmer. I am one of the parties and landowners of this little subdivision. My concerns are of compaction as well as the other issues, but I'll address one at a time. Compaction. The permit was issued to Mr. Fleetwood Engineering, and on that permit and plans, it spelled out the requirements for the MAG standards, which is very clear to understand. It's to be done according to step by step of the compaction. In other words, in 1 foot lifts, because it is a flexible pipe. The compaction reports must indicate 2 items of very importance. One being a laboratory test, the other being the actual compaction test in the field. The laboratory test indicate the density of the soil, the dry density of the soil, which gives you the ability to determine the compaction with the numbers taken by the test in the field. The construction crew failed to show up with any compaction equipment at all. They had nothing. They had a backhoe, and that is the only piece of equipment that they had on their project. I mentioned to them that I was going to ask for compaction reports from a soils engineer. So the failure of the engineer of record would be not to direct the construction workers, nor to demand them or himself to hire a soils engineer. I got absolutely no response. I could not get an answer, could not get a permit number. I could not at that time even get a set of plans. But after 50 years of doing business in this field, I knew that there had to be compaction down our roadway regarding our traffic. Anytime traffic is on a road, it is required to have vehicular traffic is on a road. It is required to have 95% compaction.
Mr. Ulmer, I don't want to question. I think you're probably absolutely correct in all those items, but
Yes.
the case here is Mr. Fleetwood was hired by the water company to perform design criteria or design service for the water company.
Okay.
And he did that to a point. The water company accepted his drawings or his plan sets, and then it went into construction. So I think a lot of the stuff you're citing right now are legitimate, but I don't know that it goes back to the civil engineer in this case, Mr. Fleetwood. That was the assessment that came from from our assessors who looked at this project, that
Yes, sir.
the design work was satisfied, but the problems occurred, I think, after the fact. And I think you
Well,
should be
Mr.
directing a lot of these problems
I'm
with
sorry.
the water company and or the city. But I guess I just want to make it clear to you that the assessors have indicated that Mr. Fleetwood was hired to design a service to the water company, and that was fulfilled, and the water company agreed. They satisfied what they were hired to do. So I guess I want to make sure we're separating their design service from after the fact stuff that happened in the field.
Mr. Fleetwood accepted this set of plans and authorized that he would see that they were done properly. And then at the end of the project, concerning the construction as well as the rest of the plan, he then reached out and signed an authorization of completion, signing off to the ADEQ as well as the ACC that this plan was done according to the specifications set forth by the state of Arizona, which is absolutely not true. It was not done to the standards. He was responsible, in my view, for the entire project to make sure, because he is the one that had to sign off on the completion of, on the certificate of completion so that they could put that service in order. We asked for compaction reports right up front. We did not receive. The next item I would have would be the speedy engineering reports that we paid to have taken.
I
Mr.
apologize.
Winter?
Side note here. So board member Skanke left the meeting at 10:44. Mr. Wilson left the meeting at 10:47. We currently still have a quorum, but I wanted that for the record that both of those members dropped off the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Winter. I'm sorry.
Mr.
continue.
Wilson has actually just rejoined us.
Did I do something wrong here?
I'm sorry,
trying
but
not
if we lose quorum, then the meeting stops. So that's why that's so critical. Sorry to interrupt.
I get it. I'm so sorry. The point of speedy engineering, we hired them to do 3 certified compaction tests on the trenches after the project was completed. They stepped in and took proctors and samples, dried them, got the dry density, and performed the compaction test, and all three failed to meet the minimum standard. The next item I'd like to go to is if you'll look at some of the photos that we have turned in to the board, as well as the state of Arizona, there are before pictures and after construction. And those pictures indicate in the before pictures, if you merely look at the tree line of the roadway, the tree line that is right next to the roadway, and in the after, you can see that the tree line is 10 feet away from the roadway is 10 feet away from the tree line. So they have moved the roadway, rerouting it completely and narrowing it. And the reason they did that is because the third reason would be the access pipes to the valves, instead of using a metal hub access pipe and concrete rings around it, which the MAG standard spells out very clearly how to install. I've installed many of them. They put up PVC pipes 20 inches out of the original road base for us to drive around. That is a complete violation of the MAG standards and the direction of those plans.
Mr. Ream, did Mr. Fleetwood have construction management as part of his services? Do we know?
He didn't.
Okay. So this goes back to, again, Mr. Elmore. Mr. Fleetwood was hired to design the civil improvements, and those improvements were accepted by the water company and constructed, but he did not provide construction management. So he not necessarily in a position to, I suppose, disagree or agree with your assessment because he wasn't on site during the installation. So that's why we're focusing our discussion right now on the design service, not the construction side.
Well, then I guess it would be in the form of a question. Why would he be in charge of signing the order of completion, certificate of completion? So he's in, he's out. And to me, that's a little bit confusing. I worked with several engineers through the years, and that's not the way it works. You sign on with an engineer, and he does and performs the duties so that he can sign the declaration of compliance. And he did that. The declaration of his compliance had to go in, and it had to go in by somebody. Now, where does the engineer stand on that?
I'm not in a position to answer that right now. Means and methods, that's
I'm
not
sorry.
necessarily the civil engineers under his control. The design work is, and meeting specs, yes. But from what we're hearing right now, he's satisfied what he was hired to do, and his services were approved by his client. Mr. Ream, can you share a summary on this for the board?
Well, I can. However, there are three other allegers that it's the same project, and all four of them, my understanding, are prepared, and it might make more sense to have all four of them present, followed by Mr. Fleetwood if he rejoins us, that he can address those, and then I can follow up.
Are you Mr. DeWitt?
No, sir. I'm Daryl McBroom. I'm a property owner in the same subdivision.
Okay. All right. Can you give us a brief summary on your position here?
I'm here to support Dean, and all I can say is I'm a property owner. I've owned property in there longer than Dean has. And we asked the water company when we found out what they were doing to please not tear up our road, put it back like it was. And all I can say is it hasn't been returned to the original condition. I'm not even sure I could get my fifth wheel into my property now because of the uncompacted trench.
Mr. Chair, there's also a Mary Kennedy, I think, is remote, as well as KK Miyagawa. Those are also two allegers in the four cases that I think are remote.
Yes, my name is Mary Kennedy. And if you don't mind, I kind of prepared my thoughts, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. And I thank you for allowing me to speak with you regarding this case today. I am also one of the landowners of the property and holder of the ingress-egress easement that runs the full length of the water line project that we're talking about. And with Mr. Fleetwood, with regard to the construction of this project, he took on a very special fiduciary responsibility on behalf of ADEQ when he agreed to be the engineer of record for this project. He would be the eyes and the ears on the ground for ADEQ. In that case, also, he would be responsible for the public and us as the landowners and the easement holders for anything that would happen with that construction. But I don't think that he acted accordingly. The public water line project, you know, it didn't have any other inspectors on it. Nobody else showed up to inspect. ADEQ doesn't send their own inspectors when they have an engineer of record willing to do the job. The city doesn't come out because we're not in a city, and the county did not send any inspectors out, even though we thought maybe they should have, because it is a public water line. So Mr. Fleetwood was the only inspector on this project. He had that responsibility as engineer of record for ADEQ. He certified to ADEQ that the project was built in conformance with the plans and the specifications, and to ADEQ's certificate of approval to construct, which calls in all kinds of different standards. But we haven't seen any evidence, any kind of tangible evidence that this work was done properly. We provided the board with a list of those things that we don't believe meet standard. You've heard Dean explain some of those. Compaction of the trench, A number 1. That compaction is called out on the plans and it's called in the MAG standards. All of the things that were left on the site that were not completed to MAG standards and not returning the project back to its normal condition. So I think that there was, you know, this is what I see. I see it's an ethical issue. It's a conflict of interest, the way that Mr. Fleetwood has behaved, because as an engineer of record representing ADEQ, he's the only line of defense on behalf of ADEQ. He appears to have accepted the word of the construction foreman for the water company, who was also his client. He's accepted that this work was done in conformance with the plans. But I don't see how that can be called honest oversight or a true inspection. In what way does that protect ADEQ or the public or our community from any kind of shady construction practice? I would like to see what kind of evidence Mr. Fleetwood has that shows that this trench was compacted. Our community has the right to confidently know that construction was done, that was done in our easement, meets required construction standards. And he is the inspector who is the only person who can tell us that. So I ask the board, please do not allow this case to be dismissed. There was not just one or two things that the engineer failed to address in his duties as engineer of record, but several significant construction standards and specifications were not met. Mr. Fleetwood did not seek outside confirmation that the project was built to standard, but relied on the word of the very people who constructed the line and paid him to design plans.
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy. I want to just confirm, I have a note from one of the assessors that based on the proposal that was submitted by Mr. Fleetwood, Fleetwood Engineering was not hired to provide construction inspection or to conduct compaction testing. So it's outside of scope.
This is a different position. This is being an engineer of record on behalf of ADEQ. Inspections are required. He has to certify to ADEQ that the construction was built in compliance with the plans and specifications. If he does not do that, he's not protecting the state of Arizona. He's not protecting the public. That is a special position that was created, I think, because ADQ didn't have enough inspectors. So he works on—
Ms. Kennedy, I think your issue is with the Cedar Grove Water Company, not with Mr. Fleetwood.
I disagree, sir.
Okay. I'm going to open up for discussion by the board. Board members.
May I say one other thing? May I just one?
Quickly, please.
One last, okay. ADQ is watching the outcome of this case. And right now their hands are tied because an engineer who's a professional engineer in the state of Arizona told them that the project was built correctly. So their hands are tied. But if you guys can see that there is a disciplinary action that could be taken against him because he did not fulfill his responsibility, then ADQ can proceed and do a real inspection of our water line out here.
Okay, thank you for calling in. Board, discussion?
I'm not sure this gets, I just want to make sure I think there were 4 allegers. Did we get to hear from all of them?
Mr. Miyagawa is online as well.
Yes, hello. My name's KK Miyagawa. I'm here.
Are you associated with this this complaint? Are you with the Mr. Bath?
I don't know who that is. I live.
Which case are you,
Mr. Chair? It's E23078. I think is or 87. I believe is the case number for Mr. Miyagawa.
It's agenda number 889.
All right. Thank you. I'm sorry. That was my mistake. Can you share the board your position on this?
Yes, well, pretty much
regarding Mr. Fleetwood.
Pretty much everything that Dean Ulmer and Mary Kennedy has said, I agree with. We have a situation out here that's very bad, but what I keep hearing from you and the board is it seems to be you're more concerned with the fact that Fleetwood Engineering was hired by Cedar Grove Water Company to do a job. They apparently, Cedar Grove liked what they did and paid them, and that's it. Well, if that's the case, there's nothing for me to say because it wouldn't make any difference. The problem is for us living on the actual property, that's not true. We do have a big problem, and the problem is with both Fleetwood Engineering and Cedar Grove Water Company because they did something to our property in the very simplest terms that was wrong. They've caused us a great deal of hardship, financial stress and cost, and we have at times very, very difficult time entering our homes. I would propose a question to you on the board. Would any one of you like to have work done near your property such that at times it would become difficult for you to return home? How would you respond to that? Basically, that's what we're facing at this time. We are seeking help to try to fix this problem that we had no say in, we did not want, we had no oversight. There is apparently nobody watching over what's going on, but yet we have to live with it and accept it. So I don't know if my words are falling on deaf ears, but that's the situation.
Not falling on deaf ears, I assure you. I just think that the issue is not necessarily with Mr. Fleetwood. I think your concern should be addressed to the Cedar Grove Water Company regarding the final construction. Mr. Winter.
I was going to say that Miss Tyler has raised her hand, just so you're aware.
Please
Who's
go
Ms.
ahead.
Tyler?
Mr. Chairman, my name is Karen Tyler. I'm an attorney for the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. Although we take no position in this matter, I would like to point out that the department does have two rules, Administrative Code R18-5-507 and R18-5-508, that does require that the registrant stamp a certificate of completion that says that he has inspected and ensured that the plans and work was done in accordance with the plans and that there were no deviations. And we do rely on that registrant's stamp to inspect and verify that the work was done accordingly. And we make no further inspection based on the registrant's certification. And that in this case, Mr. Fleetwood did make that certification to our department.
Can you review the certification? That was for the installation of the water line?
Correct.
So he certified that the water line was installed correctly.
Correct.
Does that carry a statement about the compaction and grading?
I believe that it did.
That's a different issue. I guess I want to open this up for the board discussion. Thank you for calling in, Ms. Tyler. Appreciate that.
This is Dr. Campbell. Are we able to send this case back to committee for reevaluation based on the information that we've heard today and have them reevaluate the situation and provide us with their suggestions based on any new information that may have been presented today?
Well, that question can come up. I guess I want to hear from Mr. Ream because I don't know that there's any new revelations that have come out of this. I still think the problem deals with the follow-up by Cedar Grove Water Company and not necessarily with the registrant. Mr. Ream, can you share the staff investigation on this, please?
I can tell you during the course of the 4 cases, certainly during the course of it, I developed some degree of empathy with respect to all of the allegers. They are all essentially conveying similar issues with respect to ingress and egress out of their property after this water line and extension construction project had taken place. As well as their attempts to resolve matters through the Registrar of Contractors, Arizona Corporation Commission, and that kind of thing. But frankly, from an investigative perspective, in engineering matters such as this, we typically rely quite heavily on our Enforcement Advisory Committee members, and we give them everything. In this particular case, 2 EAC members had all of the information that were provided from everyone, Mr. Fleetwood as well as the 4 allegers, evaluated all of those things. And these were 2 separate and independent evaluations that took place. And neither of the 2 EAC members even recommended an EAC meeting be convened to begin with. So I know one committee member our board member was asking about that issue with respect to EAC. EAC meeting wasn't convened in this case, and it wasn't recommended after a review of all the associated documents. So frankly, that's what's based, or what I base my recommendation upon is, and I haven't heard anything today that was different from what we have already had. Frankly, there isn't anything new that surfaced. And as such, I believe the recommendation is appropriate based largely upon the recommendations of 2 EAC members during the course of their case assessments.
Thank you, Mr. Ream. Board, questions?
Mr. Chairman, this is Scott Sales. So looking at the certification statement that I think everybody has been discussing and alluding to related to what Mr. Fleetwood signed, and going through there, it states, I, Mark Fleetwood, a professional engineer registered in the state of Arizona or person on my direct supervision, of a professional engineer have inspected the construction of the above described project and certify that the above identified information are true and correct. It goes on, but I guess looking through the information provided, well, a couple things. One, he mentions he hasn't, have inspected the construction of the above described project. It would be what I guess I would like to know what Mr. Fleetwood had in the way of basically like soil samples during construction, if that was ever provided to him to review, to be able to say that certain portions of the project were done. If no one ever provided him everything, and someone were to go out in the field and look at it, one could see a road and things. So I couldn't find in there. Maybe it was in there. I just couldn't find a spot where during construction, not after construction, but during construction, information was provided to him.
Would the board like us to call Mr. Fleetwood?
I think that would be great. Yes, thank you. Mr. Ulmer?
Yes, sir. With all due respect, I have a declaration from the foreman or the supervisor over the water company that did answer and add this to the complaint, to the answer to the complaint to the ACC. And basically what he says is, and I have copies of it here, be happy to share. It's from the ACC, or from the attorney for the water company. He says that he compacted all levels with by rolling the levels with the way I assumed it, with a tractor, basically a backhoe. During the process of this whole thing, I went to the water company and I said, look, I have the compaction equipment in my yard. I live here. Please use it. You're coming down my road. You can use it for free. You're coming down my road. My wife and I are raising a 6-year-old great-grandson. It was everything we could do to get my grandson to school this last year. Nobody else lives on the road like I do. And my business has been completely shut down. I sold a great deal of equipment because I can't make the payment. I can't get out with a $300,000 Peterbilt transfer truck. This is somewhere not fair. And I immediately called the county. I immediately called the ROC. I have phone records here to show you. We're at our wits' end.
Mr. Winter?
Mr. Fleetwood, are you online?
Yes, Mr. Chairman and board, I am online. Actually, I've been on the entire time. I just could not get the mute to be off.
And Ms. Skanke has joined the meeting as well.
Oh, thank you, Kurt. Mr. Fleetwood, can you share with the board the scope of your services? It appears though the design work was approved, but the concern seems to be during the installation and approval of the finished project.
Right, and as has been discussed, I was not hired to do construction management or construction inspection. But with ADEQ products, I do a final walkthrough of the project and gather the pressure testing results, and then also the bacterial testing that was completed, and any minor changes as far as built that need to be done, and that is what is submitted to ADEQ. I can't be 100% sure of this because I don't have it in front of me, but I'm pretty sure grading and compaction testing is not required to be submitted to ADEQ. But I was assured that compaction was done. I did not see any compaction testing though. And when I was at the site in, I believe, late July, early August, it's in the package of the exact date. But this was after a major flood, and The road was in bad shape. This is a non-maintained county road, so the county does not maintain this road. The road was in bad shape and the flood had gone over the road. And just for the board's general knowledge, only a small portion of this line is actually in the roadway. Most of it is outside of the roadway. It starts on a county maintained road. That's where the connection was. That's off. It's in the easement, but that's off the roadway. There was a bore underneath that paved road, and then it started to enter on the non-maintained county road, and most of that line was off the roadway.
Okay, thank you. Have you anything else to add relative to your? So compaction was done by Speedy, but that was not really part of your scope or review.
No, the testing that was done by Speedy that I saw results, that was after construction, and that was paid for by the residents. And I don't even know if that was done on the water line, above the water line, next to the water line. I saw some holes out there when I went for the final. I think it was done prior to the final, actually.
Mr. Reed,
but those were surface.
Mr.
Those were surface tests.
Mr. Fleetwood, have you maintained any communication with the water company? Have they taken a position on this?
They do. Actually, in the packets, a lot of the information was the response to the ROC. There's a video of the flood while it was happening. There's numerous pictures. So a lot of that information I did provide, because when I was contacted, I heard about the complaint with the Corporation Commission and also the ROC. And then when I received the complaint, I asked if I could have all the information that they had. So I submitted most of that with my reply.
Mr. Chair, I think I can help with respect to that issue. I was contacted by the attorney of the involved water company. He telephoned me, and based on what he was conveying, I asked him to specifically send a letter with respect to the position of the water company and Mr. Fleetwood's work. He did that, and it is part of the board's package. The water company is supportive of Mr. Fleetwood and his work. That's their position as they conveyed it to me, both over the telephone as well as in writing.
Did Cedar Grove hire, obviously, the general contractor to install the water line and do the reparation of the grade? Are they involved in this in any way, shape, or form? Have they been approached? Mr. Omer?
Yes, sir. Cedar Grove brought their own unexperienced, unlicensed people in to do this project. The superintendent asked me on one of the first days, how do you slip this pipe together? Because he knows I have 50 years experience. I follow this water company around town, and everywhere they go, there's a speed bump. I know I'm not supposed to say things like that, but the fact is they have no clue what they're doing and I question the county on a public water line, 6-inch, to supply public water to the public, if they wouldn't please get involved with this situation, because the studies done throughout the years from the University of Texas, as well as the University, I forget where it is, but what they have determined is a unstable water line, which this is a very dangerous and deadly animal against people. There's over 100 people a year that check into the ER, and over 8,000 that die from contaminated water because of water breaks, and that was out of the University of Texas.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we're kind of moving out of position here.
Mr. Gilmore, my question is Mr. Fleetwood said that a lot of the water line was not in the roadway. Then that means the roadway probably came across my property I never gave him permission to do that.
I'm not in a position to respond to that. Mr. Fleetwood?
I don't know which property he has. There's easement on these parcels that are in Apache County like that. There's easement on both sides, and it's either 20, 25, 30 feet each direction.
Yeah.
And usually the roadway's in the middle, but I don't know, I don't know exactly on this case where it's at.
We each gave 15 feet.
Okay.
And if it wasn't across mine, it was across somebody else's. And they did not get permission to go across anybody's property.
Well, if it's within the easement, they have the right. The easement probably could be outside the roadway. Doesn't have to be within the roadway itself. And we don't have that information. So that's an issue that you need to take up with the water company, not necessarily with Mr. Fleetwood. So we kept coming back to the scope of the services provided by Mr. Fleetwood and the scope of the improvements. It appears though Mr. Fleetwood was hired to design a water line which was installed. He was not hired for construction management or to inspect the finished project. So it still comes back to the issue, as far as I'm concerned, that your conflicts with the water company and whoever installed it, not with Mr. Fleetwood. Mr. Ullman, yeah, very quickly.
Yes, Mr. Fleetwood just indicated where the water line was in the as-built. The as-built that he just mentioned is absolutely incorrect. We have a new as-built that was taken off of the property lines. Each one of the property corners is the center of the roadway, and each one of these is measured to the edge of the trench. So here is, and you should have had it because we sent it, and it is not on the outer edge of the road. It runs anywhere from 6 feet from the center of the road all the way to, on my piece of property, the water trench is directly under the corner of my property corner.
Mr. Fleetwood, can you confirm that the water line was installed within the easement?
I can't say that for sure. I'm pretty sure it was. I don't know where Dean's property is exactly.
I can move this. Right? You want to move this?
Right
here.
This is measured off the edge of the roadway in most cases.
Okay, it's okay.
I don't really have a response. I don't even know. If you look at the date, I did design this in like 2021, I think. So I don't know.
Mr. Homer?
He just admitted he had the responsibility to do the as-built, and he doesn't know where it's at. That means they didn't lay the project out or design it the way he said that he designed it.
He may have designed it correctly, but he was not hired for construction management. So I don't know that I can point the finger at Mr. Fleetwood. Mr. Winter?
Mr. Miyagawa is raising his hand.
Mr. Miyagawa?
Yes, I had a question. Karen Tyler said that when he stamps that it's been completed, he's certifying that it's been inspected. Isn't that correct?
I don't have an answer for you on that one. I'm not familiar enough with ADEQ to answer that.
Maybe we should let her answer.
Oh, Ms. Tyler?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Karen Tyler again for ADEQ. Yes, the certification is that it has been inspected and that all construction conforms to the approved plans. And there is a requirement in rule that any deviations or changes to the submitted plans have to be designated on a new set of plans and submitted to the department. There was nothing received by the department to indicate that there were any changes to the approved plans in this case.
So I
So
guess
that-
the question comes up, was the compaction referenced as part of the approval?
My understanding is that it was in the notes on the submitted plans, yes.
Mr. Chairman,
So
Scott
how-
Sales, the note at the
Mr.
bottom.
Chair,
I
can
don't,
I answer that?
Oh, Mr. Fleetwood.
Yes, thank you. So yes, there is a detail sheet that has a trench detail that shows compaction and the mag spec on that. And the mag spec for compaction is different if it's in a roadway, if it's in the easement, you know, depending where it's at, it's different. But as far as the certification, the final inspection was done. That's checking the line, checking where things are put in, and also the pressure testing and the bacteriological testing. And those results were submitted. I don't believe there's anything in there about compaction testing with ADEQ. Normally, the municipality or the county is who will inspect or require those compaction tests, not ADEQ. Thank you.
Did the county do the confirmation of the installation of the water line? They must have had an inspector on site.
No, they did not.
The county only looked at the road bore on their paved road. And I'm sure at that same time, they probably looked at the connection on their road. Because the road in question is a dirt road. It is not a county maintained road. So they would not be looking at that section.
Okay, this is a private road. Mr. Ulmer?
Yes, sir. I have in my possession the section in the MAG standards that spell out vehicular travel on a roadway or easement, if you would like a copy of it.
And
This was an easement that was originated in 2005 between two parties. It was a private ingress, egress, utility easement. We do not have any complaint with the water line coming down our road, but we did not want them to make a super mud bog out of it.
Ms. Kennedy has raised her hand.
Ms. Kennedy?
Yes, I do have a question, if it would be allowed to ask Karen Tyler with ADEQ, what is, how many times do her inspectors that actually work for ADEQ, would they be visiting the site during trenching and you know, inspecting press blocks and looking at, you know, shading and things like that?
Ms. Tyler?
Mr. Chairman,
hear the question?
yes. I do not have numbers available for me at this time as far as how often we inspect during installation. I can tell you that it is ADEQ's position that we rely on the registrants stamping the plans to ensure that everything was constructed as submitted to the department, and we do not typically do inspections.
That's what I figured. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this is Mark Fleetwood. I'd like to respond to the mud bog.
Please do.
I think there's something that's missing here, and I completely understand that the road was ruined during that flooding. But a 2-foot wide, 4-foot deep trench on the side of a road, and then flooding occurs, and then all this mud from, who knows, 10 square miles upstream of that flooding ends up on the road, because the road is actually lower than the rest of the area. So it's going to settle on that road. I just don't see how that can happen as a result of a waterline trench, especially when the waterline trench, all the material is still in that trench. So I understand they're frustrated about that, but I went out after the flooding and the road had a bunch of ruts in it. Most of those not where the water line was at, so.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr.
Miyagawa. Well,
Mr.
in
Miyagawa.
response
Yes.
to what Mr. Fleetwood just said, what he saw may very well be true, but it's not actually what we live with. We've had flooding there before with heavy rains, and yet had no trouble crossing the road as soon as the water was off the road. The problem is now, if there's heavy rains, the flooding becomes, it doesn't go away. The road just stays a mud pit. So yes, this all occurred after Cedar Grove installed the water line. It did not occur before Cedar Grove installed the water line and was certified by Mr. Fleetwood of Fleetwood Engineering. We did not have a problem crossing the road after a rain. Now we do. It's black and white what's occurred out here, and you have to be out there to understand it. And I can tell you, I've gotten stuck twice in the road after it's gotten wet since the water line has been installed. And in all the years prior to the water line being installed, I never got stuck once. So what happened? It's
Well,
not too hard. to
Mr.
understand.
Guy, I'm sympathetic, but I don't know that I can point the finger at Mr. Fleetwood because that's necessarily a grading issue. The road did not change, but the trench compaction and the trench grading is what potentially resulted. And I don't know if that's in Mr. Fleetwood's scope to fix or control.
Someone certified that the road was put back to the standards required by the ADEQ. Well, if the standards that are required that the road be put back to the standards that they asked for, obviously it hasn't been done because of the issues we have. Someone is at fault. So whoever was supposed to be looking over this project did not do that. And now we are paying the price.
Mr. Chairman, this is Fleetwood.
Mr. Fleetwood, yeah, quickly.
So in the area where this flooded across the road and actually over the road, there was more water than the culvert could handle. The water line was, I don't have it in front of me, 10 feet off the road in the easement, and it was upstream of the culvert. The water line did not get washed out. The trench was still intact. All of that mud that ended up on the road, I think, I don't know. To me, it's common sense that that could not have come from the trench. All the material was still in the trench. And the road was not any part of even the water company's issue at that point. There's another area where the water company was in the road, but not right there where that wash crosses that road. If you look in the pictures, there's a picture of this whole thing. And there's even a video of the water flooding across the road that one of the other homeowners took while it was flooding.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I would just like to remind the board that the board is only able to operate in the regulatory purview, and there may be aspects that are properly addressed by a regulatory board. There may be aspects that would be properly addressed in a different jurisdictions, such as the civil sphere, but this board only really can look at the regulatory aspects of this.
Thank you, Mr. Donald.
Mr. Chair, this is Scott Sales. So that's a good point with the information on what can be settled here and not here. There was a couple of sheets provided with some, I'll say, hand sketching of distances off of some type of what they would be called property lines. I can't really allude to it because it's not a sealed document. So I don't know if an actual surveyor put it together. I don't know how it was done. It was 3924 on the page number for the PDF. But so there's a number of things in there, and to me, there's not enough information since it's not a sealed document to be able to compare that versus the as-built drawing of the water line, because based on the information I see in the documents, we have a plan to put the water line off the existing road, except where it crosses in a few spots. And then we have the this other document that shows something a little bit different. It must have been after the fact when the information was taken off of gates and fences and those type of things, and how that was all put together. So, at this point, it's kind of hard to. I'd have to rely on the the record drawings that the line was put in where it was supposed to be. I think unless there were some other documents that showed that the line was not put in properly, done with surveying, and I'm assuming probably some potholing to actually verify that the pipe is in the actual spot where it is, and that they shouldn't have been very many fittings in here. It looks like straight lines for the most part on all the lines. So I mean, that's just my observations, Mr. Chairman, that the information is there. But I would go back to the item there, the certification on the bottom where he did seal that there was I don't have the exact wording. Let me go back to that page. But maybe I'll pause and let some of the other board members chime in on their thoughts.
Ms. Kennedy has her hand raised again.
I'm sorry, who?
Ms. Kennedy on the phone.
Ms. Kennedy, quickly.
Yes, I really ask that you really pay attention and consider the needs of ADEQ to protect the public, not just for this case, which to us is very serious, but this is going to set a precedent, what you guys decide here for ADEQ moving forward. They need teeth in the game, and I don't know how else this can happen without you guys understanding the importance of the position that ADEQ put Mr. Fleetwood in when he agreed to be the engineer of record. So thank you for listening.
Thank you. Board, any other discussion?
So with the information that's available here, Mr. Fleetwood, the as-built that you certified shows that the water line was not under the road, except for that I think there's 2 crossings. But other than that, it was offset per those as-built plans for the locations.
Yes, I believe that's right. I don't have it in front of me, but yes. I mean, we would not want to put it in the road unless absolutely necessary.
And looking through the plan set and the information here, I don't see that there were any improvements planned for the road as part of this project. There was no new like asphalt AB or any other layer added to the top of the road at the time. It was left alone.
No, nothing was done to the road except at the crossings, correct?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Fleetwood. I guess I'm still not coming. I'm going back to Mr. Fleetwood's position as the engineer of record, and he installed the water line as he was hired to do it. The problems that came about after the fact, and I think your problem is still going back to the contractor who installed it and with the Cedar Grove Water Company. I think that's where your focus should be, not necessarily Mr. Fleetwood.
Yes, sir, I agree. And that's what we tried to do at first. We tried to reach out to the ACC and made a report. And they have no jurisdiction, and I have that paperwork, when it is concerning a public easement. They call it a public easement. We fought the battle with them. We sent them the documentation that showed them that this was a private easement. In regards to the as-built, the entire 30 feet, 15 feet on each side of the property is part of the roadway. It is considered as possibility to vehicular travel, not just a 5-foot or 10-foot wide roadway. The entire 30 feet is considered the ingress egress utility easement roadway. So if it's in the easement, it is in the roadway.
And Mr. Chairman, based on the as-built drawing from Mr. Fleetwood there's a call out that does indicate 30-foot wide roadway easement. Now, I don't have enough information here in front of me to different counties and stuff are a little bit different sometimes and what can and can't go inside of that roadway easement, but it's clear on here that the line was intended to be outside of the roadway except for the few crossings where it went across. So based on this, and I guess it would be, I go back to it's a 3 or 4 page document put together on where the line was in relation to fences or we'll say property lines. But again, I don't know. It's not sealed by a surveyor. I don't know. It's just, to me, I'll say a sketch on there. Hold it down.
I'm sorry. They were survey marks that were done by a licensed surveyor and a simple tape measure to find the edge of the trench. It's very easy to find the edge of the trench because the trench is sinking. You cannot drive into the trench because you will get stuck. It's really just a no-brainer.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, on that one, it's without having the actual stuff, and if there was a surveyor that didn't, it would have been beneficial for them to seal or something, notify that it was done under, and that those were lines. So what we all could look at to see if there was an issue potentially with the record drawings, which, in my opinion, would be something to discuss here without having that certification to be able to overlay on, or not overlay, but to be able to compare the two versus the as-built plans where it was said it is versus this other, we'll say, sketch at this time.
Yes, sir. I totally understand the position or the placement of that water line is not important as long as it stays within the easement. But as that water line was installed, it was required to be compacted correctly. There lies the issue of the whole situation, because it was not compacted. It has restricted. It has narrowed, and then they put the wrong valve access pipes in the road for us to drive around. So the importance of the as-built is not significant because, like I said, it's in the roadway and it's in the easement, one of the same.
Mr. Raymond, Apache County, respond, get involved in this anyway.
I don't recall
Who
any
issued the
involvement
permit
with
for the construction?
I don't remember what
had to be the
the
county.
permit itself. I can't tell you that. I just don't know.
I have phone records that show that I spent a significant amount of time on the phone with Apache County begging them to please come out and review this, and they refused to do it. I talked to the road engineer and said, look, you guys just need to come out here and supervise this. That's all I'm asking. Just send an inspector, do whatever you need to do to ensure that our road isn't going to be mush when they get done, because this compaction issue was an issue from day one of the project. And I apologize if I'm making a nuisance of myself, but I would like to help make everybody understand. We have done all of our due diligence. I sent out to the ACC, I sent out to the ROC. I spent almost 45 minutes on the phone with the ROC, the ACC, the county. We've done everything to avoid this situation.
Miss Kennedy has her hand up.
Yes, the only permit that we could find that was issued for this construction was through ADEQ.
Thank you. Mr. Donald, I'd like to convene an executive session. I'd like to get some legal advice on this situation.
Is that a motion to go into executive session to receive legal advice, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we move into an executive session to get legal advice from our counsel.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that. Scott Sales.
We need a motion, vote. Okay, can I get a vote? All those in favor of going to executive session, please say aye. Aye. Dr. Campbell?
Aye.
Ms. Hobick?
Aye.
And Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
And Ms. Stanky?
Aye.
Great. That's everybody? All right. We're going to move into executive session. I think board members have the link. Take a break, go into executive session, discuss this. We'll be back. Kurt, we ready?
Board members online, I want to see if you were there.
Dr. Campbell's back.
Yeah, let's do a roll call, Kurt, please. We recording?
Yes, we are.
Okay, let's do a roll call, please.
Mr. Gilmore?
Present.
Mr. Koleka? Ms. Klett?
Present.
Mr. Sales?
Present.
Mr. Nesgood?
Present.
Dr. Campbell?
Present.
Ms. Hobick?
Here.
Ms. Lindgren? Ms. Skanke?
Here.
Mr. Wilson?
Here.
Ms. Hall?
Here.
Hey, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Mr. Fleetwood, are you still online? Mark?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Great, thank you. For the to help the board, you prepared these plans and submitted it to who for review and approval?
ADQ.
Did this go to Apache County?
No. The only reason they were aware is because there was a road bore, and the previous owner of the water company worked on the road bore with them directly.
So the permit, the only permit that was issued was ADQ?
To my knowledge, unless I'm guessing that the Apache County did not issue a permit, they just came and inspected the road bore. And the reason we did a road bore is so we wouldn't have to make repairs to that asphalt road.
Okay. Thank you. Complicated situation you gentlemen have, admittedly, but we still go back to the fact that I see this as a design issue involving Mr. Fleetwood, and he got his plans reviewed and a permit issued by ADEQ, and he satisfied the Cedar Grove Water Company's requirement for the installation of the water line. A lot of stuff that has occurred after the fact is we can't point the finger at Mr. Fleetwood or the fact that his design did not perform as it should because he designed the water line and it was installed. The problems have occurred after the fact with the apparent grading of the road and some maybe some unusually high water events, storm events that caused some issues, but I can't point the finger at Mr. Fleetwood as being a cause of that. So at this point, I still go back to the fact that I think Mr. Fleetwood has satisfied his commitment to ADQ and to the Cedar Grove Water Company. He was hired to perform a service and he did that to their satisfaction. We have documentation to that. The problems have occurred after the fact, and I think your issues go beyond the board right now, and you have the ability to pursue other options to get satisfaction. But I think at this point, the board can't really move any further past Mr. Fleetwood's design service. So, board, any other discussion on this?
I was just say, Mr. Chair, Scott Sales, just that, all circling back around, there's been a lot of information gone this way and that way and shared, which is really great for discussion. Based on, again, what this board has governance of, in my opinion, I don't see anything that was in violation with what Mr. Fleetwood did in this, again, for what we can govern over.
Any other discussion, board? Okay. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion for dismissal.
Mr. Chair, before that happens, I would, there is, if additional information were to come to light or anything like that. I believe it's any alleger or anybody's purview to submit something to the board, whatever we vote on here just now. I just wanted to bring that up as a point. So with that, I will go with a proposed motion to dismiss P 23-035, P 23-076, P 23-077, and P 23-087.
If I may, you mentioned Mr. Sales 035 is the first case number. It should have been 075.
Yes, I don't know where 35. It's not even okay. Anyway, yes, P 23-075-076-077 and -087 for dismissal.
Can I get a second, please?
This is Dana Clyde, I second.
Hey, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on this motion? Seeing none, let's do roll call, please. Hayden?
Hey, Mr. Gilmore.
Aye.
Mr. Koleka, Ms. Klett,
Aye.
Mr. Sales,
Aye.
Mr. Nesgood,
Aye.
Dr. Campbell,
Aye.
Ms. Hobick,
Aye.
Ms. Lindgren, Ms. Skanke,
Aye.
Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Ms. Bohal.
Aye.
Hey, motion passes.
Anybody opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Gentlemen, I appreciate you coming in. Like I say, I don't know that we can help with these problems that have occurred after the fact. I think you need to pursue other options to resolve those issues, but it's really beyond the purview of this board. Appreciate you coming in now. Thank you. Good luck.